No, I forgot to make a reservation for Miss Jones. I'm sorry, I said. My mother-in-law pretended to be surprised and grabbed my hands. The five of us went to the restaurant together, but she purposely didn't save a spot for me. Honey, there's no need to apologize, she said. We originally made this reservation for our son and grandson. We don't need to include strangers. My father-in-law agreed with her, laughing loudly. Hey, Emery, make sure you pay the bill. How nice it is to treat your family to a meal. After my husband, Jose, spoke, my in-laws laughed even louder. Their crude laughter didn't match the quiet atmosphere of the fancy restaurant. My son, Liam, looked at me uncomfortably. I wanted to flip the table they were sitting at, but I had no energy to fight them anymore. I didn't want my precious son to witness that. I sighed and turned around. Fine, I'll watch over Liam, so don't worry. Bye, Emery Jones. Even after marrying her son, my mother-in-law always called me by my maiden name Jones. Today, she said it again with a smug smile on her face. She always harassed me like this, but I just walked away. As I held back tears and went to pay at the front counter, a waiter suddenly grabbed my hand. Miss Jones, no way. I never imagined this could happen. To think I'd meet him again, all because a waiter noticed what my mother-in-law said as she harassed me. From that moment on, my life completely changed. When did my marriage start falling apart? I used to live happily with my husband Vose and our son Liam in a 3-bedroom apartment. But that's just a memory now. I first met Jose in college. He looked like a model and had a way with words, so many girls chased after him. The fact that he chose me made me think he really liked me, right? But Jose always put himself first. He hid it well, but as we grew closer, I quickly found out. I'm indecisive and feel most comfortable following others. I was surprised when Jose confessed his feelings to me, but thinking about it now, maybe he was drawn to my weak personality. When we started dating, I began to notice things about Jose's personality that bothered me. But since such a great guy chose me, I told myself not to be too picky. After we graduated from university, my doubts grew stronger. Thanks to his father's connections, Jose got hired by a big company and was given special treatment. Being an only son, his parents spoiled him a lot. My father-in-law even had a friend who managed an apartment building and gave us a huge discount on rent. I started to feel like my in-laws were upset that Jose had chosen me. They had always arranged everything for him, so maybe they felt I wasn't good enough for their son. I'll never forget the contempt in their eyes when we first met. Don't you think your parents really hate me? I asked Jose. Really? You don't need to worry about them, he said. You're not marrying them, you're marrying me. At the time, Jose seemed so reassuring, so I made the mistake of believing him and thinking everything would be okay. Jose and I got married, but his parents still didn't accept me as part of their family. Even now, they still call me by my maiden name. After we got married, I gave birth to our son, Liam. Without Liam, I would have given up a long time ago. For the first year after Liam was born, my in-laws' attitude changed a bit. They were thrilled to have their first grandchild, and my mother-in-law even thanked me for giving birth to Liam. Those were the first and last words of gratitude I ever heard from her. But when Liam turned 2, things went back to how they were before, if not worse. When my in-laws visited, they only paid attention to Jose and Liam. Meanwhile, Jose was cheating on me while I was busy taking care of Liam. No matter how many times I thought about leaving, I decided to stay with Jose until Liam was grown up. I told myself that even a father like Jose was better than Liam not having a father at all. But then one day, something unexpected happened. It was the weekend and my in-laws came over, as usual, to play with Liam. As they were leaving that evening, they said something surprising. All right, let's have a birthday party for Jose next week. I made a reservation at King, my father-in-law announced proudly. King? That's the restaurant managed by our CEO's son, right? I've heard it's really hard to get a reservation there, Jose replied. I made a special request to the CEO just for you, my father-in-law said, clearly pleased with himself. I expected that, like last year, they'd want to go somewhere without me, but then my mother-in-law turned to me and said, So, you should keep your schedule open too. Huh? I was still in shock as my in-laws left. I didn't understand what was going on, but I started to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was the first step toward fixing our relationship. On the day of Jose's birthday, we all gathered at the restaurant. I had imagined a large grand place since it was supposed to be high-end, but it was actually quite small and intimate, the kind of place where only a few select customers could dine at the same time. As we entered, my father-in-law seemed very proud. I noticed a large engraved stone sign that read King. Seeing that name brought back old memories, and I started to feel nostalgic. I remembered there was a guy named King in high school, and without realizing it, I began to smile. We were then shown to a table in a private room. However, the table in the private room had only 4 chairs. The waiter looked nervous and said, "I'm sorry, I'll get one more chair for you." "Oh, don't worry, 4 chairs are enough," my father-in-law said. The waiter seemed confused, but I immediately understood what my father-in-law was implying. My mother-in-law added, "Oh no, I forgot to make a reservation for Mrs. Jones. I'm sorry." She pretended to be surprised and grabbed my hands. The 5 of us went to the restaurant together, but she intentionally didn't save a spot for me. "Honey, there's no need to apologize," my mother-in-law said. "We originally made this reservation for our son and grandson. We don't need to include strangers." My father-in-law encouraged her with a loud laugh. "Hey, Emery, be sure to pay the bill. How nice it is to treat your family to a meal." After Josie spoke, my in-laws laughed even louder. Their loud, inappropriate laughter didn't fit the quiet atmosphere of the fancy restaurant. My son, Liam, looked at me uncomfortably. I wanted to flip the table they were sitting at, but I didn't have the energy to fight them anymore, and I didn't want my precious son to see that. I sighed and turned around. "Fine, I'll watch over Liam, so don't worry. Bye, Emery Jones." As I walked out of the room, I heard more laughter behind me. I made my way to the exit, wiping away the tears that were streaming down my cheeks. The waiter who had left the room with me suddenly grabbed my hand. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Emery Jones?" Yeah. About the bill." I started to say. "There's no need for you to worry about the bill. Please follow me," he said. I was puzzled but didn't pull away. I followed the waiter as we walked further from the private dining room. I could still hear my father-in-law's loud voice behind us, saying things like, "She'll be so expensive she won't be able to pay. She'll probably start crying. If she can't pay, she should wash dishes." As we approached a staff room, I felt a bit relieved when the noise from my in-laws faded away. But I was still curious about why the waiter was leading me here. He opened the door, and I grew more worried. Inside, a tall man with a serious face stood in front of me. He looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place him. I stared at him, and he raised an eyebrow. That gesture made me realize. "Are you King?" "Yeah, it's been a while, Emery." King smiled. Then his expression turned serious. "Emery, can you leave them to me?" "Them? Do you mean my husband and in-laws?" "Yes, let's go see them now." King took my hand and led me back towards the private dining room. He opened the door with a loud bang, and everyone immediately turned to look at him. My father-in-law stood up with a forced smile. "Oh, it's Chef King. You look serious. Did something happen?" "It's about Emery," King said. My in-laws looked shocked. King and I were classmates in high school. He was rebellious and often skipped school, but after a while, we became friends. Despite his tough exterior, he was actually very kind. When my in-laws heard what King said, their faces went pale. "Oh, we didn't intend to," they started to stammer. "Then please explain to me what you were trying to do," King demanded. Jose, looking pitiful, stepped forward. As I followed his gaze, I saw an older man who looked like King walking towards us. I wanted to laugh, but the room's atmosphere was too tense. "Are you the ones who treated my son's friend so rudely?" the older man asked. "But boss, what happened?" "Won't you explain?" my father-in-law stammered. He's wrong. There's been a misunderstanding," he continued. "Hey, Emery, say something," my mother-in-law urged. I didn't need to say anything. King cut in. "I don't mean rude employees like you. Don't come to our office anymore." "No way." "Wait, please give us a chance. We're incredibly sorry. Please forgive us," they begged desperately. My mother-in-law started crying, and the 2 of them continued to apologize. Liam came over to me, looking scared and with tears in his eyes. I comforted him, telling him not to be afraid, and patted his head. After a while, he calmed down and managed to smile again. "If you're really sincere, you should prove it with your actions," King said. "Clean the restaurant after we close tonight. People with dirty hearts like yours should learn how to clean." King and his father then took Liam and me to a separate room and served us an amazing meal. The food was incredibly delicious, and even though King acted very humbly, they had prepared a special kids' meal for Liam. "Liam, your mom is a great person," King said. "Yeah, I know," Liam replied. "Yeah, you probably do," King smiled. "Do you want me to tell you a story?" King began sharing a story from the past, recounting how he had hated studying when we were in high school. King's parents were high achievers, but he struggled with studying and felt like he didn't fit in with his family. He missed so many days of school that he was close to being expelled. One day, King and I were paired up for a cooking assignment in home economics class. "Try this," I said, handing him a sample. "Wow, it's delicious," he replied. "You're so good at seasoning food." "I just did it randomly," I said. "No way. I saw how many times you tasted it. There's no way it was random," King said. I didn't think much of my words, but it was the first time King had ever received a compliment. Thanks to that compliment, King started studying cooking. Of course, he didn't become a pro right away and made many mistakes. "I'm really useless," he said once. "You're not useless," I reassured him. "You just need to be creative with your cooking." "Huh?" he responded. "No matter how good your ingredients are, if they're not cooked well, they won't taste good. Measure portions properly, try different combinations, or let things sit overnight once in a while." Creative. Yes, exactly. Just like in cooking, even if you have talent, not everything you do will be perfect, so you need to be creative. That advice helped King realize he needed to aim to be a pro. He eventually became a world-renowned chef. His relationship with his parents improved after that. After hearing the whole story, I was amazed. Did I really say something like that? "Yes," King said. "You probably don't remember, but your words had a huge impact on me." "Mom, you're amazing," Liam said. King's story didn't end there. He spoke about me to his employees many times, so when the waiter heard my name, he recognized it and knew he had to help me. So the restaurant name wasn't just a coincidence. "Yeah," King said, smiling. "You're the one who once wrote my name with a C instead of a K, right?" "I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose," I said. "No, I'm actually happy it happened," King replied. "You were the only person who paid attention to me back then. I thought writing the restaurant name with a C would make it stand out and be easier to remember. So thank you." One of the staff called to King and he left the room. I reflected on what I had told him back then. I realized I needed to be creative with my own life too. If I didn't put any effort, things wouldn't turn out the way I wanted. Looking at Liam, I made up my mind. I would divorce Jose and start my life over. 1 year later. "Hey King," Liam shouted as he rushed to hug him. King hugged Liam back, smiling warmly. Since that time at the restaurant, King and I had started seeing each other more often and began dating. We were now considering getting married. I hadn't talked to Liam about it yet, but I was sure he'd be happy. Liam was so attached to King that I felt confident he would be pleased. After the incident, my ex-father-in-law and Jose were both demoted. They begged their bosses for forgiveness, but due to the complicated HR processes in large companies, they hadn't been fired yet. They're still hanging on somehow in the company's shadows. King and I watched over Liam as he peacefully slept after getting tired from playing with King. Liam's worried because he's not good at studying, I told King. He's tried cooking to be like you, but things haven't gone well, and he's gotten even more upset. "Really?" King asked. "Yes, he's actually very athletic. The other day, he won first place in a sprinting contest at school." "Then there's no need to worry about him," King said reassuringly. King and I made eye contact and smiled. I've always wanted to enjoy quiet moments like this with my partner. "I'll teach Liam the way you taught me," I said. "Everyone is good at different things." "That's right," King agreed. "Thank you." King gently patted Liam's head with his large hands. They really looked like they could be father and son.